Why hasn't Pokemon put all of their old games onto NSO? Well, it's actually deeper than you think. Nintendo has already put a bunch of Game Boy Advanced and Game Boy Color games onto NSO for people to enjoy. And it seems like they must have forgotten to put all of the Pokemon games on there, right? The only Pokemon games available on NSO are the Pokemon Stadium games for N64. So all of the other mainline and side games are missing. You think it would be a really easy decision for Nintendo to put all of these games onto NSO for members to enjoy, but if it was that easy, they would have done it already. Going back to the era of the 3DS, Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, and Crystal were all available for $10 each on the eShop. And these were exact ports of these games, and even though they weren't physical releases, for $10, that's not a bad deal at all.
Give me all of your money. Take it, please.
And having access to all these games on the 3DS was incredible, but what made it even better is that you could port all of your Pokemon over to Pokemon Bank and then move them to games like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon to use there. This allowed all of Gen 1 and 2 to be accessed, which made these games even more engaging to play through again. It's no wonder why these games sold incredibly well on the eShop. So you would think that Pokemon would be able to do it again for NSO, but it's not that simple. A cataclysmic event happened in the Pokemon community in 2019 called Dexit. For people who don't know, Sword and Shield were the first Pokemon games to bar Pokemon from being usable in games, meaning you can't use certain Pokemon in these games. Even if you had them in Pokemon Home, you wouldn't be able to transfer them over to Sword and Shield, making a lot of fans mildly upset.
Let's burn this mother down!
Okay, so a little bit more than mildly. This did get fixed a little bit with the DLCs, but a lot of Pokemon were still missing. If Pokemon were to re-release all of these classic games on the NSO, it would be expected that these games would have access to Pokemon Home because they did it in the past with Pokemon Bank. Even Pokemon Go can transfer to Pokemon Home now, so if they were to release these games without the ability to transfer these Pokemon, people would be livid. Now, they could release these and delay the ability to transfer them, but I don't think that would fix the larger issue at hand of not being able to use these Pokemon in modern games. The Pokemon Company is huge and they own the largest media franchise in the world, so I'm sure if they wanted to, the next installments in the series, they could make it so every Pokemon was usable. It's a big undertaking, but they have the resources to make it work. Another reason these games are not being brought over is because these games would generate zero revenue if they were to do so. I know more people would sign up for NSO, but people forget that Nintendo does not own Pokemon. They are just a stakeholder in the Pokemon Company, which would make it so other stakeholders in the company would lose out on millions of dollars in sales. The only way I see these games coming to Switch is if they release a legacy collection. If they were to put all of the Game Boy Advanced and Game Boy Color Pokemon games onto one cartridge for the Switch, I'm sure it would sell incredibly well. Look at the price of these games today. There's no way that Pokemon would not want to make more money off these IPs because they're in demand. And if they didn't want to do a master collection, they could sell individual games on the eShop like they did on the 3DS. This would work for every Pokemon game prior to the DS, and they would make loads of money doing it this way too. There is so much money to be made on these games, it's no wonder why they haven't put them on NSO yet. And the DS games are an entirely different story. It would be really hard to bring these games over to the Switch going from 2 screens to 1. And with the recent release of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I don't see them making these games available on the Switch. They can make so much money remastering these games. The next games in line for a remake are Generation 2 or Generation 5 because those games have not been released in the longest time. And there is no way Pokemon is going to give up an opportunity to make a mountain of money on remaking these games if it's possible. With this being both technically hard and fiscally dumb, I don't see the DS games ever being ported to the Switch without a full remake being done. The Nintendo Switch is an extremely successful console, and the sales will speak for itself. NSO offers a lot of games already, but these games being added on would be a blessing, but I guarantee that these games won't be coming to NSO anytime soon because Pokemon won't give up all of that money that easily. I could see these games being released as a limited time promotion similar to Mario 3D All-Star Collection, but I don't see these games coming to NSO for various reasons.